What did the bully do at your school that made you think that's too far? Belted some kid with a chunk of wood, 2x4, for talking to his girl. Kid got a depressed skull fracture or summit. Bully went to jail. 5th grade. She mercilessly bullied the shortest, smallest kid in class every day. She called him midget. And other things like that. I distinctly remember the day she shoved him to the ground outside of school. That was when I knew I had to stay away from her no matter what. About 5-ish years later, her and her boyfriend were involved in the murder of her mom and sister. They found her trying to run away to Mexico. Completely horrifying and heartbreaking situation. A group of kids liked to piss off this real nice teacher because they said he was creepy, so one day they played a prank where one of them pretended to hang themselves and he had a stroke because of it. I like annoying teachers and all, but even I was like, holy it. I went to a boarding school. Some kid got pinned down by 2 guys while another bounced his balls on his face. This kid got at Mr. Ball bouncy by pissing into a water bottle and pouring it all over his room. Both were kicked out. While I was in junior high, there was this guy in my grade. He was incredibly nice. Super sweet to everyone. And never realized when people were making fun of him. His name was Brian and he had Down syndrome. One day these 3 kids decided to start picking on him. They started making fun of him. Brian never really realized when someone was being sarcastic or making fun of him. So he would just smile and try to talk to them and be the nice guy he was. These 3 kids decided to take it further and started pushing him. I told them they needed to duck off. Their reaction was to push him to the ground and hold him there until he was crying and telling me to do something about it. Now I've always been a bigger guy. I was probably 6 feet 0 inches and 200 pounds back in 7th grade. I also grew up as the youngest of 5 boys. Meaning I got the it kicked out of me by my brothers in a daily basis. So I had some good knowledge on how to protect myself. But outside of with my brothers, had never had a fight before. I ended up breaking one of the kids' nose. One ended up with broken ribs. And the third just got a bloody lip. I still say they deserved to get beat much worse. After it was all said and done, the 3 of them were suspended for 3 days. I was suspended for 3 as well. But after my mom heard what happened and why I was fighting, I got a 3-day vacation from school and a new game for my GameCube. My mom always taught me right from wrong and was nothing but proud of me. Threw exploding firecrackers into some random lady's baby carriage and severely injured the baby. This group of guys went to my middle and high school. They bullied me in 6th grade. And out of everyone I'd met until that point, I knew them to be the most likely to do something actually violent. 3 years ago, in 9th grade, a kid I had never met but who was also in the same grade and at the same school was beaten to death in an alleyway, with 3 teenagers as suspects. I live in Florida, but in a nicer part that doesn't have as much Florida man type things happening too often. Anyways, my dad was the one who had initially told me about the murder. Because I hadn't, and still don't, pay attention to local news much, I thought back to the kids who bullied me way in the beginning of middle school. And I remember specifically listing their names and promising that they were at least a part of it. Sure enough, 2 of the 3 involved were those stupid ass bullies from way back when. The third was actually an old friend. He was a decent person, but his family wasn't. And overall he was an impressionable person surrounded by the wrong people. And X200B. Edit, jail time. Plenty of it. They tied some kid's gym locker up with his t-shirt. But before they did they squirted mustard all over his clothes. I helped him get his locker back open. They weren't happy but I was a varsity wrestler so they didn't mess with me. Edit, wow, a silver award. I thought I'd never get one. I hate bullies and I'm glad others do too. It doesn't exactly fit with the story but this thread made me remember a funny incident where one of my friends at the time suddenly decided he was going to become a hardest and get all the respect and babes by picking on the weird kid. It was totally random because he was a nice, pretty quiet kid before that. But anyway, he walked up to the weird kid all bully badass and said, "That's my chair. What are you doing in my chair before class?" The weird kid just calmly sits there and quite rightly points out there's no assigned seating. So bully badass suddenly pushes him and tried to get him in a headlock. So the weird kid just bit him on the arm. Really hard. Hard enough to break the skin and send him to the hospital for tetanus shots. This was back in the days when school administrators still were allowed to have some common sense, so the principal just called them both into the office. Figured out what happened. And said to bully badass, "You got what you deserved." And said to the weird kid, "Don't bite anyone else. That is dangerous and very weird." And then made them shake on it, and that was that. The first and last day of my old junior high friend's decision to be a badass and get popular by picking on the weird kid. Not really the bully of my school. But when I was in HS, a girl posted her boyfriend's porn on Twitter and tagged his mom because she was mad that he made it, rightfully. He did it behind her back. The added salt in the wound was that he did 2 solo vids that got posted on the site's gay version. And she chose the video from the gay site to tag the mom in. Needless to say, his family and anyone who knew him saw his everything after he was publicly exposed and de-anonymized. This guy was also very homophobic in his personal life. So he got kicked out of the porn industry after his personal Twitter was posted on the comments for all of his videos, causing a huge uproar. His apology video is still on YouTube. And he still gets it for it. He tried to stab a friend's eyes out and tried to stab a relative of mine with glass. Yet another beat the crap out of a friend with a group of like 20 of his own friends. Totally unrelated group chased a friend of mine with a knife trying to stab him. Some guy tried to light a girl's hair on fire. He didn't succeed, but she was ready to beat the it out of him. I held her back. At this point I'm not sure that was the right choice. It's hard to say. I don't know where he is now. But he probably could have used a beating. My friend had finally grown her hair back after chemo. So yeah, that guy was a giant dick. And maybe I should have let her kick his ass. I thought he was good dude before that event. But yup. Way too far. I wasn't told much of it, but someone I was friendly with was bullied pretty harshly by some people and committed suicide. He never told anyone about how he was bullied, but people slowly caught on to who caused it to happen. Still feel terrible that I didn't know what was going on with the person I was friendly with and wish I could have done something to save him. This one may be kind of mild compared to others. But there was a freshman on our wrestling team who was a completely dweeb and got picked on a lot by this group of sophomore wrestlers. Our 113, 120 and 138 wrestlers. Anyways, one day they decided it would be a good idea to pee on him in the showers after practice. That made me so mad. I talked to the coach next day and got to drill live matches, actually wrestling each other, with each of them on rotation for 10 practices straight. Maybe the most satisfying thing I've ever done. Kid they picked on qualified for state his senior year. Karma Sarik. Tried to beat the it out of the nicest guy in school. Nice guy was huge. Not fat. But big ahead of the rest of us. But he wouldn't fight back. Just kept getting hit on the way to his next class. He turned around once. And we thought it was on. But then he calmed himself down. Turned the other cheek and walked to class. I was amazed. So much class. 2 of my buddies and myself beat the it out of the bully the next day. Told him never to duck with big guy again. He never did. I wish I had the ability to turn the other cheek like that back then. Had to learn the hard way much later in life. One bully at my school pushed a kid down the stairs, where there were shards of glass at the bottom, which he landed on. The bully was expelled. In anger management, probation, and juvie for a short time. The kid's okay. He has serious scars though. This guy dislodged a locker door and started smacking my friend's balls with it. Started picking on a severely handicapped girl. I beat the bloody hell out of him. There was a toilet in the locker room that quit working. Someone used it anyways and it sat for a couple weeks. Kid filled someone's water bottle with it. Disgustingest thing ever. In college someone pulled a prank on a Jewish guy by putting a shaving cream swastika on his door. Uncalled for but not outrageous. His response to the girl he only suspected had done it was to print hundreds of copies he had of her naked playing strip poker all over the campus with the caption, "This girl is cheap and easy." It wasn't even her who did it. After he had done this he was bragging how he had just gotten started. I finally stepped in and said he had already taken it too far as it is. And fortunately he stopped there. I'm no anti-Semite. And a swastika is over the line. But the swastika didn't actually harm anyone's reputation. I hope he looks back at this and feels bad.